Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we got the continuation of a series called Yeshua Said. Now some of you might call Yeshua Jesus. Well, whatever you want to call him, I believe his name was Yeshua, which in the Hebrew means the salvation of Yahweh, or Yahweh's salvation. Well, it is Yeshua. That's exactly what Yahweh's salvation is. Well, the series is Yeshua Said. What did our Messiah say? Now let's forget about all the commentaries we read in Bibles. Let's forget about everything everyone else says. Let's just look at the red letters that Messiah says that's usually highlighted in the scriptures. Because I want to show you where the scriptures reveal, Yeshua's teachings reveal as well, that the Torah is what we are to be keeping. Yeshua said, follow me. And the original followers were known as followers of the way. What way were they known as followers as? The way of Yeshua Messiah. Yeshua was known, folks, as the living Torah. The Torah is the foundation of all scriptures. You see, it's a mistaken, misunderstood teaching today when people say we have grace, so we don't need to keep the law. First of all, Torah does not mean law, it means guidelines and instructions, and Yeshua is known as the living Torah because he was the living example of the guidelines and instructions of what we are to do and how we are to do it. And just in case you don't believe me or you want to try to dispute me, well, I'm going to go right to the Word and forget about what all the commentary says in the Bibles, forget about what everyone else says. Let's look at what Messiah himself says. And this is a series that I'm doing, and we're doing Matthew right now, and we're up to Matthew 7:12, and you can look back at the previous videos on my website, healthwatchman.com, or my YouTube page, and you can see the previous messages in this series. There's a playlist on my site, but Yeshua said Matthew 7:12, and it says as I read, always treat others as you would like them to treat you. That sums up the teaching of the Torah and the prophets. And that's from the complete version, the complete Jewish Bible. Now, a lot of the translations start off with the word therefore, and then they'll go into that, and we're going to talk about that. But let's break down what Yeshua is saying here in Matthew 7:12, and I am showing you he didn't tell us to do away with the so-called law, which is the Torah, the guideline instructions, but in fact, he told us if we're true followers of him, and if our heart is what we say it is, we want to do the Torah, the guidelines and instructions. And we don't want to use grace as a loophole to say, well, we don't have to do the works. No. You know, if you're doing the work, you have his grace. But if you think you're saved and you're going to be out there and you're saved and you don't want to do what he said to do and you're living a life opposite of that, especially after proclaiming Yeshua as Messiah, you know, you've got something coming to you that you might not be aware of, because that's not what he wants you to do. He wants you to keep Torah. How did I know that? I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm reading his words, exactly what he said. So Matthew 7:12, always treat others as you would treat them, as you would like them to treat you. That sums up the teaching of the Torah and the prophets. Well, first we look at Yeshua. You know, there's no such thing as an old and new covenant, everybody. It's the original and the renewed. And Yeshua Messiah himself always and often quoted from the original covenant. He was in the original covenant and he quoted from it, and he took those teachings to the people. And he said here, Leviticus 19:18 is something that's in the Torah, the first 5 books of the scriptures, which is the foundation of all scripture. And Leviticus 19:18 it says, don't take vengeance on or bear a grudge against any of your people. Rather, love your neighbor as yourself. I am the wonderful creator that speaks to you. So this is what it says in Leviticus. So basically, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, we look at the teaching now that says in Matthew 7:12, which basically says teach others or treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, during the time of Yeshua, there was a famous rabbi who was a teacher. His name was Hillel, and basically he taught, and one of his most popular teachings were this very thing that it says here in Leviticus, to love your neighbor. He in fact said it was the most important commandment. So now you have one of the leading, most popular teachers or rabbis during the time of Yeshua Messiah teaching what he called the most important commandment of all the commandments was to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Or like it says here, and Yeshua told everyone in Matthew 7:12, to treat others as you want to be treated. Now we look at Yeshua giving it a little positive twist, because this Rabbi Hillel wasn't the first person to say that. It was a very common teaching amongst the day to treat others as you would treat yourself. but it was always taught more from a negative standpoint and not a positive standpoint. So it was usually taught something like, don't harm others so you won't be harmed. So there's a negative idea behind that. Don't do this so this doesn't happen. Well, Yeshua turned it around and he gave it a positive twist. Do this, or so you will get this in return. It's a more positive twist. So the exact way this famous rabbi during Yeshua's time said it, Halal, he said, do not do to your neighbor what is hateful to yourself. So do not do what is hateful, so you're not get what's hateful back. Socrates, a famous philosopher, also said, what stirs to anger when done to you by others, do not do to others. So again, anger, more of a negative slant on, don't get other people angry so they don't get you angry. And then we even look at the Apocrypha, which was taken out of the scriptures, but part of the original scriptures, and we look at a book called Tobit, and in Tobit 4:15 it says, and what you hate, do not do to anyone. Do not drink wine in excess or let drunkenness go with you on your way. So this obviously is something they hated at the time, but basically, again, don't do something you hate to others and get that in return. Basically, Yeshua gave it a positive twist and saying, treat others the way you would have them treat you. And it's more of a positive, and he's also giving them this action to go out there and do it. So you're not going to do something like it says, an example from the negative side, it says, you don't just want to refrain from doing something as the negative would say, but you want to actually go and do something positive. So there's an action taking place. So example, if somebody says, don't rob that guy, so you don't want him to rob you, that's really just a negative thing, and it's something you're just refraining from doing, more as a passive thing, and not more of a taking action and saying, well, do this, be nice to that person so that person's nice to you, or treat that person the way you would want to be treated, which is what it says. It's actually known, folks, as the golden rule. The golden rule, and this is what is traditionally what it's called, but this is what this scripture is about. But I've already showed you how Yeshua, our Messiah, is teaching from the original covenant. This wasn't a new idea. This wasn't something he said that they haven't heard before, but the way he's saying it was what they haven't heard before. And that's what the story of Yeshua is about. It's not what he said. He didn't say too many things that wasn't already said. It was the way he said it, the parables he put it in, what he was saying, and also the claim he had that he was Messiah. Nobody said it the way he said it, and nobody else could make that claim. But he fulfilled both of those, folks. And this is what he said, Now we got to remember when we look at this, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Who was our Messiah speaking to? We have to think about that one, because certainly if somebody's going to treat me bad, I don't want to go and treat them bad. That wouldn't be fulfilling this idea here of Yeshua. Yeshua was doing good things to get, and good things will happen to you. Not do bad things when somebody does something bad to you. So, we have to understand, Yeshua was talking to his disciples here. This happened here. This was, the crowds were gathered around. This was the Sermon on the Mount. His messages were close by, and the crowds went out there, and thousands of people heard this. But these are people that proclaimed Yeshua, followers of Yeshua. They followed him into the desert. They followed him to look at him on the mountain. They followed him wherever he went, and they listened to his every word. So he was talking to those. He wasn't talking to the people that didn't believe in him. He wasn't talking to the people that were doing bad. He was talking to people that were doing good or desired to do good. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Now, you don't want to go up to your enemy and treat them the same way. Basically, what Yeshua is saying here, you treat your fellow brother different, or your fellow believer different than you treat the pagans, the nations, or the non-believers, or the Gentiles. You treat them different. You treat the believers one way, and you treat the others the other way. You see, when you did something, your word meant everything back then. You didn't need to take oaths and do all these different things because your word was so powerful back then. So you do it, and you do it, and your word was known, and you was trustworthy amongst believers. But the non-believers is a different story. And the scriptures tell us, and Yeshua shows us, to judge the fellow believer, to be their watchman, and judge them, to lift them up, not tear them down. But it's the world we don't need to be judging. The world we need to be praying for. It's our fellow brother that says they know Yeshua Messiah, and they're still doing the things they shouldn't be doing. They should know better than wrong. To the world, we got to show them better from wrong. So we see this, everybody, and we see what's happening here. And we see Yeshua speaking this golden rule. But why did it get so mixed up? And why do so many people get a misunderstanding of this scripture? Well, the real reason is because many teachers today of the Bible will say law, the word law. And very few people know the difference between the word Torah and the word law. Law is a thing, well, we all know what a law is. If you break a law, you're going to get in trouble. But the Torah means guidelines and instructions. So if you're teaching that the guidelines and instructions of the law, and if you don't do that, right away you're going to get in trouble, do that or else. No, the Torah was something that you were instructed to do, and there were consequences if you didn't do that, but it wasn't a law. It was something you didn't even have to try to do. Your heart's in the right place. You're living the Torah. You're living according to the guidelines and instructions because he took it off paper. He put it on your heart. That's what he wanted to happen. But the teachers, the churches out there today teach law, and they don't use the word Torah, and this is where the translation gets mixed up because people say, well, we're free from the law. No, Yeshua came to set us free from the man-made law of the power, the man that was adding to the guidelines and instructions. But Yeshua said, never stop following the Torah, the guidelines and instructions of my Father. He said, never stop doing them. In fact, you are to keep them if you love him. So it goes on to say here, we look at, it says the law and the prophets. So do one as to others as you have done to you. This is the teaching of the law and the prophets. So the law is the Torah, the first 5 books of the scriptures. Starting in Genesis and going all the way through to Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the scriptures, that is the Torah. And also the law of the prophets. So we look at the law of the prophets and we see you got Joshua, you got Judges, you got 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, Isaiah through Malachi, excluding Daniel. So we see this here, and we see the books of the prophets, and this is what the essence was. And it is one of the most important, if not the most important scripture of all the scriptures, that even if we say we're saved and we have grace, we still have to follow the guidelines and instructions. And this was a guideline and instruction found in Leviticus all the way through, and now we see Yeshua teaching it. We need to follow this. It says, do whatever you would like to them. This is a translation that's not that good, the New Living Translation. It says, do to other whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. Well, the problem with this is the average person today that's reading this is taught they don't have to keep the law or their prophets. So they're not long in thinking, well, I'm going to do to others as I would want done to me, because they're throwing this out. But it really says, and this is from the One New Man Bible, a translation I absolutely love because it reads the Bible from Jewish eyes and reveals the Hebraic scriptures. It says, therefore, everything that you would want people to do to you, in this way you must do to them. For this is the Torah and the prophets. For this is the Torah and the prophets. You see the difference in the way that sounds? And that's the way Yeshua taught. He didn't say law. He said, this is the guidelines and instructions of my Father. This is what the prophets did. This is the most important thing, and this is what you need to do. That's where your heart needs to be. So I pray you're getting a better understanding of this, everyone. And this the One New Man Bible, it's on my website. You can see more about it on healthwatchman.com. But the commentary in there is from a Hebraic standpoint. It's excellent, and it reveals a lot of these things. But then we go and we look here. We look at the first word in many different translations. And the first word, if you look at all the different translations from King James all the way down to any of the other translation, the majority of them have this word at first, therefore. So therefore is one of the first words. So it says, therefore, do not treat others the way you don't want to be treated, but on the positive side, therefore, do unto others as you want to be treated. So therefore was something, so it meant immediately. Consider this. Do this immediately. So Yeshua was out there. He's on the mountain. He's teaching all the people. And first he's telling them what he's telling them. Then he goes, therefore, right now, do one to others as you would want done to you. Therefore, immediately get that done. We are to be watchmen of each other. And that's the number one thing we need to do for each other, is be watchmen and warn each other when something's about to happen or if we're doing something wrong. The scripture, there's a whole verse scripture before this that talks about judging and not judging and whose judge we are and whose judge we're not. As believers, we are to judge each other to lift us up, not tear us down. That is scripture. But it says, if you're at a non-believer's house, you're with a non-believer, you teach them the word, you show them the word, and so on. But you can't judge them the same way you judge the believers. The believers, those are the ones that say they're righteous. You need to judge them in a different way. It says if they are not, acting the way they should act, it goes so far to say if you try to correct them, they don't want to listen. It says don't even eat with them. Don't even eat with them. You had Yeshua eating with a lot of the sinners because he was teaching them and set an example. But he told us we shouldn't go and eat with those that claim to be believers that are not. They're hypocrites. They're hypocrites. And that's what so many people out there today are doing. They'll confess Yeshua with their lips, but not with their heart. And don't you see that's the problem we have today? Basically, it comes down to what this was about. Why did he say, do unto others as you would do yourself? Well, it came down to the whole concept of what our Creator is going to do for us. If we come to him, he's going to answer us. He says, knock and you shall receive. In Luke 6:30, it says, if someone asks you for something, give it to them. Knock and you shall receive. If somebody asks you something, give it to them. Well, just like that, we see in Matthew 7:12, that came right after Matthew in the 7:7 and 7:11 of Matthew. It's a full chapter about knocking and asking to receive. So do unto others as you would want them to do to you. So ask others for the things that you need. Let them ask you, and on both sides there's given. You're given. You're not thinking you're given. They ask and they shall receive. Well, that's it. The believers are asking for something righteous. The unbelievers are asking for something that you don't want anything to do with. So do unto others as you would have them do to you. Ask and you shall receive, as it says in the scripture. So basically what it's telling us here is to answer people the same way you would expect them to answer you. You're giving because they ask, so you ask and you want them in return to give. So you could almost say, do unto others as you would want them to do with you. Well, answer others as you would want them to answer to you, and then follow that up with action. You answer, and then you go ahead and you do. You keep your oath. Your yes is yes, your no is no. You don't even make an oath, as it tells us. You just say yes, yes, or no, no. You do it. You do it. You said it, and you're going to go do it. So that's what it's saying. So, we could say we're answering in our own actions because we just go and do it. If you go and do it in your own actions, if you do unto others as you would want them to do with you, and you're a righteous person, you're not going to have any problems. Because if you're living a righteous life and you want other people to do that in return, and they are, if they are, and you'll be fine. And you know what? It even says so much in the scripture, if you do unto others and they do not do that in return to you, if they do the opposite, it says turn the cheek. It says don't get caught up in their games and don't sink down to their level. It says stay above and set the example. So do unto others as you would want them to do it to you, but don't let what they're doing to you be the result of what you're doing to them. You have to be higher than that, more mature than that, okay? So we go on and we look at here. It says this here in the scriptures. It says, there are 2 commandments that are the greatest of all. And this is another thing, one of Yeshua's teachings that we'll get into later on that so many people get mixed up about. But it says here in Matthew 22:37 to 39, he told them, you are to love your Creator Yahweh with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. This is the greatest and most important mitzvah. And second is similar to it. You are to love your neighbor as yourself. All of the Torah and the prophets are depending on these 2 commands. Now understand, the old covenant wasn't done away with and replaced with the new, and now it's only these 2 things you have to do. I even read some scriptures or some translations or heard some messages where people said, well, that's summing up the 10 commands. No. Those 2 things will sum up the 613 commands, but they're summing it up. They're not doing away with it. They're not saying this is just what you have to do. They're saying you love your Creator with all your heart, and also you treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself, or like the Golden Rule says, you do unto others as you would want them to do to you. First of all, look, this is what it comes down to, everybody. You cannot love your neighbor unless you're first loving our wonderful Creator. Bottom line. You cannot love your neighbor and step out of the flesh and do unto others as you would want them to do to you unless you have an amazing relationship with our Creator. And guess what? You can only have a great relationship with our Creator if you're keeping His Torah, if you're studying His Torah. Otherwise, you're missing the boat. You're missing the whole point. You have to know what the foundation of all Scripture says. And like this series Yeshua said, you have to know the foundation of Yeshua's teachings himself. So you keep the commandments because you love our wonderful Creator who gave them to you, and not just the 10. You strive to keep the 613. And you know what? Then once you love yourself, you love your Creator, then you could easily go to your fellow brother in the spirit of a wonderful Creator and say, look, I'm going to do to you as I want you to do to me. And the flesh is not going to get in the way with this. Otherwise, you mix stuff up, the flesh will get in the way of all this and everything else. You have to understand, when you accept Yeshua as your Messiah, something is supposed to happen. Your heart is supposed to change. You're no longer to desire the things you once desired. You're no longer to love the things you once loved. Now you're to hate those things. You are a new person, and you reach a new status quo. And even the most, highest looked on person in the land that is not a believer shouldn't even come close to you if you're a believer. Shouldn't come close to you in every single area. We think about that. How do we get this golden rule and put it into practice? Well, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, do not lean on your own understanding and let our Creator direct your paths. Do not lean on your own understanding and let our Creator direct your paths. And I already gave you the sum up of the commandments. It's summing it up. It's not replacing them. But let's look at this here. Here's another one that so many people get wrong. And when you understand the words of Yeshua, you understand the scripture, because Yeshua is Torah. And we understand that Galatians 5:13 says, for brothers, you were called to be free. Only do not let that freedom become an excuse for allowing your old nature to have its way. Instead, serve one another in love. For the whole of the Torah is summed up in this one sentence: love your neighbor as you love yourself. So let's look at another scripture here, and we'll see even what it says in this version. It says, this is from the One New Man Bible that I'm talking about. Galatians 5:13 goes on to say, for you have been called in freedom, brothers, only not freedom in the flesh, but you are serving one another with love. For the whole Torah has found its full expression in one saying, in this, you will love your neighbor as you love yourself. So instead of saying that this sums up the commands, even better to say they have found an expression, a full expression in one saying that can explain the commands. So this way nobody can make and think we're changing the commands just to these two laws or guidelines or instructions. No, we're not changing them. We're not even summing them up. What we're doing is we're expressing them. This is how you could express the whole Torah. The whole Torah. And the number one thing to hold on to, it says here, it says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do unto others as you want unto you. Listen, everybody, this is what Yeshua said. I just gave it to you. I broke it down for you, Matthew 7:12. Read it yourself. Pray about it yourself. Stop twisting these things around. Yeshua said, keep the Torah. He quoted the Torah. He showed the Torah was the foundation. And that's what we have to understand. If you truly want to get a good understanding of your scriptures, rip out that page that separates the original covenant from the new covenant. It's not two books. It's one book, folks. It's known as the Bible, the whole book. From beginning in Genesis, Bereshit, to end in Revelation, and every book in the middle. We're going to continue with this series, Yeshua Said, and you can go back and look at the previous episodes on my website, and I'm excited about this to finally realize what Yeshua says and to get away from what everyone else is saying about all this, and just to show you exactly what the message of Messiah was. And in prayer, you will see it, you will live it, and you too will become a follower of the way of Messiah. So thanks for checking us out here, everybody. Until then, have a great day, and shalom, shalom.